Welcome to Season 2 of the PPC Ponderings podcast. In this season, we're platforming people we don't personally know well, but who do know PPC well. Kirk is a big fan of making new friends, so look at these episodes as friendly chats between two new friends learning about PPC together. Today, we join Kirk as he chats with Google Ads expert Miles McNair. Miles and Kirk chat about the state of PPC, some PPC tips and tricks, and they even touch on how playing video games can make you a PPC master. So sit back, grab a cup of coffee, and enjoy our conversation with Miles.
Cool. All right, Miles, thank you so much for joining me on the PPC Ponderings podcast. And yeah, it's a delight to have you on here.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. And before we dive in, I actually wanted to say something on while we're recording.
Sure.
I mentioned it to you last time, but this is really cool to me to sit here and talk to you, because what's that saying? You stand on the shoulders of the giants that came before you. And yeah, I told you last time when I started in PPC early 2018. I read a lot of your stuff, like probably all of it, all of your blogs and Search Engine Land and on Zato and your own blog, and I read your books, etc. So yeah, this is really cool to me, and I just wanted to give you the flowers while you're here, and thank you for having a really positive impact on my career. So just wanted to give you those kudos while we're recording, and ready to get this going. Cool.
Thank you. No, I love that. I'm trying to get better at accepting compliments, so I appreciate it.
Yeah, good job.
Yeah. No, it's funny because so first of all, the whole point of this second season of this Ponderings podcast is kind of like it's with like lesser known individuals, right? So we're kind of breaking that with you a little bit, but also I think not really, because from my perspective, you're like super well known around the world, and your audience is still growing in the US. Would you say that's accurate?
Yeah, I think so. I haven't actually ran any numbers on how big our audience in the US is, but it's definitely growing. But I think it's also still, it might be lagging behind because I'm not active on Twitter as much. And I feel like LinkedIn is used a lot in Europe, Netherlands specifically, but Europe as well. And I think Twitter is still like the go-to platform for most people in America. They're coming over to LinkedIn now. You can see that, especially since Elon. But yeah, maybe that will help us as well grow over there once we go on Twitter. But so much to do on LinkedIn still.
Well, that's kind of why I wanted to have you, is we can even just chat like some of the stuff that you've done on for your own personal marketing side. But I don't know if I've ever seen a PPCer grow in terms of sheer numbers of followers and interest and all that as quickly as you, to be honest. I mean, maybe I'm thinking almost in terms of more of like a public persona, like social media, that sort of thing. Maybe like an Isaac Rudansky because of his course. But that was like limited. That was almost like focused on Udemy, and then you had a private Facebook course. But just in terms of like someone who hops on the scenes, they're like, hey, I just have some thoughts on PPC. I'd like to share that. So kudos, like congratulations on that. You've
Thanks,
really
man.
Done a fantastic job of, from my perspective, of both like knowing Google, and so you are a product expert. So you're not just a guru who doesn't actually know the thing, but is good at marketing yourself. You're good at You're good at Google, and you're good at just general like marketing stuff. Like you just know how to present things in a great way on LinkedIn, especially. So I think that's really cool. So yeah, congratulations on that. So.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, so that was, I kind of wanted to explain that a little bit, because some people might see this and they see the rest of our podcast. They're like, hey, you have all these people who like we've never heard of, which is great. That's the point of the podcast. Like there are lots of smart PPCers doing a lot of things that like no one's ever heard of. They've never spoken at a conference, whatever. And some of that was like, I actually think there's a lot of people in the US who actually don't know you. So hopefully this will kind of help, help grow the numbers. So
make number go up. No, that's totally fair. And
scale.
No, I think there's still plenty of people that don't know me, and it's kind of weird because we've grown so fast over the last year. So it's been a wild journey, man. I'm still catching up, but it's also weird because everything is online, so you don't really notice as much I've been asked to speak at a few conferences, but still haven't done it. And we had a live event that we hosted a couple weeks ago with 50, 60 people here in the Netherlands, which is cool. But apart from that, there's no physical manifestation or crystallization of how fast we're growing online. So I'm just still here in my in my room building on my big screen, and that's all.
I love it. Yeah, it's interesting. Like my perspective of the PPC community is that it's changed drastically.
Yeah.
So it's funny because I still feel like I haven't been doing PPC that long. And in some ways, like I haven't, especially in terms of other industries. I've been doing it for 12, 13 years now,
Yeah.
which is kind of long for digital marketing, but not really long. And even then, in let's just say the last decade, even in the last few years, I think I've seen the industry change dramatically. And that is, I think, in part because a lot of who I have known as PPCers like 5 to 10 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of that, like their jobs just changed. Like
Yeah.
they ended up going out and managing people, or even like leaving PPC, going into data analytics, all
Yeah.
that stuff. And so like some of it is so again, this is my perception. I'm really curious to hear from you on this,
Mm-hmm.
but my perception is like you've done a fantastic job. I think what you clicked with was like tons of people who were in the space for a couple of years maybe, but also like there's just a lot of new people in PPC
Mm.
who maybe are not even as familiar with the people like, let's say, a Brad Geddes or something, who's like the godfather of
Yeah.
PPC, right?
Yeah.
Some of these people, and so for them, like they see the stuff you're putting out on LinkedIn, on like PMax and stuff like that, that's super relevant to as they're
Mm-hmm.
learning,
Mm-hmm.
and that seems to be part of what's connected that really quite a bit to you. I don't know. What do you think about that? Or do
Yeah,
you have any
yeah,
thoughts
no,
on
no,
that?
I think so. And we spoke about this last time when we weren't recording, that you said that there's a lot of people leaving PPC. And I think so too, or at least what you're doing is changing drastically. And when PMax was forced upon us last year, around this time of year, that was when right before that, I kind of committed to posting more on LinkedIn, because I did some LinkedIn before that, nothing too major, nothing too consistent. But then PMax came out, and I just thought it was really fun to openly share what I was learning, and then others would chip in as well, because I feel like that was such a collaborative learning period where everybody had no idea what was going on with Performance Max and how to make it work, because the shift from smart shopping was actually pretty brutal to PMax, because in essence it's a different type of product, especially if you were using the auto-generated videos, etc., all around that time. And yeah, I definitely agree that was the starting point of PPC Mastery, maybe even our business, because I started a Discord community. I was in a lot of NFT and crypto communities back then, and they were all hosted in Discord. So I just thought, maybe it's cool if I just create my own Discord community. I had no intention of monetizing it or growing a business on back of it. It was just to surround myself with other PPCers and just chat, hang out, share memes, Google PPC, just PPCers together. And I think Discord worked because it's such a platform for gamers, and a lot of PPCers at heart are nerds, gamers, and I say that respectfully because I also would consider myself in that category. It just worked, and people came together, and since then it's grown pretty. It was pretty wild how fast that has grown. But yeah, I definitely agree with you in the sentiment there that the community in essence is probably a bit different than how it was. The people that are in PPC now might be a bit different, whereas before we had the hardcore hackers who were into all the nitty gritty campaign structure stuff, writing scripts. It still happens, but back then it was even bigger. Maybe those people have either left PPC or went to different areas of PPC. I don't really know, but yeah, I think it's definitely changed. Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of people have started little communities. What do you attribute to the reason why yours kind of took off a little bit more than normal and expanded, especially on
Yeah,
LinkedIn and more
yeah,
publicly?
yeah. I think, but one thing that I have to say immediately is Bob, my business partner, 100%. He came in. He was one of the first members. I posted on LinkedIn back then, I'm thinking about starting a Discord community for PPCers who wants to join. And I think I had around 200 or 300 people that wanted to join from the start. And Bob was actually one of the first. And he was the first one to say, yo, can we have a memes channel? And then he would go in and share all his best PPC memes. And that was important because it shaped the culture of not taking it too seriously. Of course, like my reason of starting it was more like to help each other and to grow together, and for him as well. But he just wanted to share memes and laugh about PPC stuff. And that really resonated with people. People loved it. Now we have a GM channel, which is just GM stands for good morning. It's really ridiculous, but that's kind of the culture that we have. Everybody, whenever they log in the morning, or most people, they just send GM in the GM chat, and that's it. And then we have a whole list of people just GMing. So there's like from the start, there was a strong culture. And it was also because PMAX was the common enemy at that moment in time. And I think if you look at successful communities, they always have like a shared goal to work towards, but also a shared enemy to throw rocks at. And for us, Google is kind of the enemy in this scenario, being that they launched Performance Max and we had no idea, was it in our best interest or not? How can we drive performance with it, etc. So I think that was it. But also, I've tried a lot of different things, and the growth that we've had over the last year on my side, because a lot of it is Bob as well. It's really nice to being a partner of his. But in the last few years, I've tried a lot of different things like e-com, drop shipping, affiliate, social media marketing agency, all that, the make money online courses. I went through them all, and I've tried everything. And every single time, my girlfriend can attest to that. Every single time, I thought, yeah, this is it. This is going to be the one. And then, now it took off. But there's a long process that goes before that nobody really sees except for my girlfriend.
Mm-hmm.
She's seen it all in my family, and yeah. Just building on the back of like stacking all of the new skills that I've learned along the way. And that led to Discord. And of course, a little bit of luck as well. Like having someone like Bob in there to shape the culture early on, that's really massive. And if you don't have that, then if you start a new community and it's completely dead inside, then people will not come back. And then that's it. The culture was great from the start. And I think that was really crucial.
Have you heard of the Operators Podcast?
Mm-mm. No.
It's four guys. They all own 9-figure businesses,
Okay.
and they're fairly active on like Twitter. So Sean Frank of Ridge Wallet,
Okay.
Mike Beckham of Simple Modern. Let's see, Matthew Bertulli of Pila and Lomi, and then Jason Panzer of Hexclad Cookware. And so I just love this podcast because I think that they've hit a certain level where they just don't care what anyone thinks about whatever they say. But sometimes people like that can be real arrogant and kind of like mean and arrogant and things like that. And they're not really. I mean, definitely confident, right? Because there's a lot to be confident for. But I feel like there's a realistic confidence to it. And they were just talking about this concept of a founder being in a right fit for that industry and that business and that sort of thing, and how important that is. And just how, like, they've observed how people may be a fantastic, like, service agency owner, but just not good at e-commerce, or maybe even someone is in e-commerce and they're just like, they've just got this brand and they just don't really like their product. It's like it's only an 8 million figure brand, so there's a ton of work on the e-com side for an 8 million figure brand, and they don't really like it, and it's just not that really clicking thing. So it's interesting. They were kind of talking about the same thing that you did, where we are kind of wired for certain things with our strengths and weaknesses and our background and just kind of everything that makes us up. And it's really fun when, and I don't think everyone finds this, which is kind of sad to me, but it's really fun when you do kind of find that thing that just kind of resonates. And it doesn't mean it's not hard work. It doesn't mean sometimes it's, it's not fun to go in and all that stuff, but it is nice when it resonates with your skills and you just kind of enjoy growing a thing. So that's really cool. It sounds like you kind of find that in like the community aspect. And
yeah, for sure.
That's cool.
I will check them out. The operators, you said, right?
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, so you said so a lot of what we do on this podcast too, on these different episodes, is just try to get to know people in terms of like their personal life in some ways, like who is the Miles outside of LinkedIn, right? You said gamer. Yeah. Are you involved in a lot of gaming? Like what does that look like?
Yeah, man. Gaming has been maybe the biggest, like, how did you say, like, threat throughout my life. It started, when did it start? It was probably also, as probably for a lot of people, coping mechanism to deal with life, escape, and then also really enjoying it, of course, maybe even being addicted without really willing to to confess that. But yeah, it all started when I was really young. I think the first moment that I can remember is my father brought back home a PS1 that he rented from the local, like, in the Netherlands. Like back then, you still had video stores, like Blockbusters, and it's like a variant here in the Netherlands, like local. And they had PlayStation, which you could rent for the weekend or for a week or so. And he came back with the PS1 and Tekken, which was really cool, and Crash Bandicoot. And from there, man, like OG games.
Tony Hawk?
We had that later as well. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And that really sparked my love, and my brother as well, for gaming. And that led to when I was 6 or so, I bought my first Nintendo 64 Pikachu edition, which I somehow was able to get 300 euros for back then, just doing chores. And I visited my grandmother in the US, and she had a Nintendo under the bed. So there was a lot of gaming earlier on. And then when I was a bit older, like let's say 12 or 13, I discovered RuneScape, like MMORPGs, World of Warcraft, which was a huge rabbit hole. In the Netherlands, in high school, you have different levels. So I was in the 3rd grade of high school. I was in the highest level. Then I discovered World of Warcraft, and I went to the second highest level because I just stopped studying. Yeah, and but I think
that's funny.
Yeah, I think all of the gaming, did a lot of FIFA, PlayStation. Bought a PlayStation 5 recently. I've played all the games. And I think playing all those games really helped me in PPC because I just see it as a game. And the whole experience is a game to me. And I always say jokingly, I used to play FIFA a lot and World of Warcraft, and now it's just I play PPC. And that's, that was a huge threat throughout my life, which I still enjoy, but I don't indulge as much as I would back in the day because it's such a huge time vacuum, and it's a huge rabbit hole. So, but I still love it.
Yeah, gamification is really such a big part of marketing, I think. Like it's become something that has a name to it, gamification. But I think the same principles have been throughout marketing before people called it gamification. Right. It's just this concept of, being particularly personally involved in something, having a challenge for the consumer. There needed to be some sort of resolution. And as they're taking those micro actions of resolution, they're kind of micro action choosing that brand and that sort of thing, right? So it makes sense. I mean, we have a lot of gamers, I think, in PPC. I just got a PS5. Actually, Chris, our producer who you met on this show, he was the one. It's his fault. Let's just say that, because I actually got to play his PS5, and I was like, I've been an Xbox guy all my life. That started in college with Halo. Yeah. So Halo had just come out, I think, if I remember, in college, and I had never heard of it. And Have you played Halo? Are you familiar with the
Only a
franchise?
little bit. We didn't have like the original Xbox, so I'm much more of a PlayStation guy, as you notice from the games as well that I mentioned, which a lot of them were
Yeah.
PlayStation only. But my friends had an Xbox, and I would play Halo at their place. But I'm not as deep into it because we just didn't
Yeah.
have one.
You just didn't have that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was always Xbox. So I was like Xbox loyalist, all Halo.
Mm,
Like the concept, like in college, I remember like the emotions in college of
mm,
playing Halo and you're fighting this one enemy, the Covenant, and it's just a game. You're just fighting the Covenant. You got to beat the Covenant, and all of a sudden the Flood enters, and it like completely changed the game, and it like blew my mind, you
mm.
know. But then, I think because of that, I liked Xbox, and I don't know if I liked Xbox. I think I just liked Halo,
Yeah.
frankly.
Yeah.
And then I got the chance in this last year to play a PS5.
Hmm.
And again, it just kind of blew me away. Just
Mm.
so many things about it, the playability of the different games.
Yeah.
So I've been ripping through that. I played both Last of Us's. I've been
Mm.
playing Dead Space. I finished God of War. I've been on
Nice.
Ragnarok. Like so I'm kind of ripping through that as well.
Yeah,
So
sick.
when I have time,
Yeah, and I usually only play FIFA now because you can just go in and play a couple of games and then that's it. Online, I like
yeah.
PvP. Because those like I never touched what's the name again? It came out last year, like the huge it was a big deal. What's it called? Even Elon Musk was playing it. At a like the
Oh,
open
Elden Ring.
Elden Ring. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. No, I tried it. Nope, I was out.
No?
Too much of a commitment.
Yeah,
It was too
exactly.
much of a commitment. I just didn't have the
Exactly.
time to invest in it.
Exactly, and
Yeah.
it's probably I had the same because it's probably super good, and that's the problem. That's the danger of it
Yeah.
as well. So, yeah, I only play a couple of games where I can do PvP, just log in, boom, play a game for 30, 60 minutes, and boom, that's it. Because otherwise,
Yeah.
I'm not creating content and I'm not doing the things I want to do in my business because my brain will go to that place. Like, oh, come on, one game, one more.
Yeah.
So.
One more. Yeah. That's good. That's fair. What else do you do besides games for fun?
Yeah, man. So I just came back to the Netherlands 2 months ago, and I was traveling with my girlfriend. We always had the goal to escape the Dutch winter for a bit. And we're both internationally oriented. So I come from a multicultural background. My dad is African American, and my mother is Dutch. And I grew up in the Netherlands. But I've always been intrigued by different cultures and lifestyle abroad, life abroad, especially also because Dutch summers are nice, but they're 3 months, and then after that it's just rain and it gets cold and then rain again. So we always had the goal of going abroad and just living the quote unquote digital nomad lifestyle, which we did. We went to Spain first, from September to December last year. And then from January until April this year, we went to Cape Town, South Africa. And that's what
Cool.
I really love to do most, like travel. But that's more on the macro scale because you don't do that all the time. But that's when I feel alive most, when I can travel and discover new cultures and hear sounds that I can't understand. I love that, you know. I always hate it when I come back to the Netherlands and I can understand everything everybody is saying around me because everybody's speaking
Huh.
Dutch and English again, and I just love it when I have to make sense of it. Like, yeah, something inside of me just really likes that, and but that's on the macro scale, and apart from that, man, I have to be honest. Right now, what I'm doing with PPC Mastery, I'm really enjoying that. So that's my new game, like I said. And I try not to work as much because my girlfriend keeps me grounded that way. Because I think if I didn't have her, I would work much more, which would go at the expense of my sleep and everything. So I try to log off around latest 6, and then we go for a walk, chill a bit, and then go to bed. Because I also like to work out and go on runs and invest in my health because yeah, that's super important. And apart from that, hobby wise, always used to love playing football or soccer, and yeah, and electronic music as well. So this may be something that not a lot of people know about me, but I have a SoundCloud profile, and I'm just uploading DJ sets. I haven't uploaded in a while because I don't have my set here right now, but I was pretty consistent. And when I was studying, I would play DJ gigs here every now and then. So I really enjoy that. That's when my mind goes to ease as well, when I can listen to like melodic techno electronic music. So that's what I enjoy as well.
We've got to get that link in the show notes.
Cool.
All right,
I'll send it to
you. Can we
you.
put that in there?
Yeah,
awesome.
Absolutely.
That's interesting. That is another thing that I feel like I run into a lot with PPCers is music. Music is an interesting tie. I don't know. It'd be interesting to get like some surveys going just to see how much that resonates with people.
Yeah.
I wonder if PPC seems to attract people who are both creative and analytical. At least from what I've seen, there seems to be some level, like you tend to be driven, which, okay, now this is interesting based on your comments before. Yeah. Old school PPC probably was more on the analytical side, right?
Yeah.
More on the, like, we're hiring accountants. Well, okay. Or PPCers, and increasingly, especially as PMAX gets in, and then especially as like privacy regulations and like attribution has always been difficult, that's going to be more difficult. I just think the concept of being able to understand how to create, what am I trying to say? In kind of a general marketing type way, how to identify who your target audience is through the tools that you have, and then really be able to kind of test and experiment with what are the sort of things, the benefits, and how can we present these both through both videos and images, and then also through the text as well on these different assets. How can we match those with the target audiences and test those and that sort of thing? We're getting far more into marketing. Yeah. And not as much anymore into just like number punching and negative keywords and that sort of thing. So maybe that's part of why we see a lot of people who also have a real creative side, like music and art and stuff like that too.
Maybe. Yeah. It could very well be. Pondering. Yeah, no, and I totally agree. It's also because of how PPC has changed with assets just being the default to a certain degree. You just have to deal with it in one way or the other. And, with videos, not only in YouTube ads, but which is getting bigger and bigger every year, but also in Performance Max, you need to have that at least a little bit of creativity, because as you said, it's not so much anymore only about crunching the numbers inside of Google Ads, also partly because a lot of it is automated, and there are less data points to look at, maybe meaningful data points, you could say. That's not to say that there's no need to be analytical, because it's super important still. But at the same time, you need to have another complementary skill. And we always say, like, you need your base Google Ads skills, which involves analytics, but then you can sort of branch out into one of three, maybe more, but we usually say one of three options, which is one, you go super deep into data and analytics, which also includes anything that you feed into the system, so your first party data, and setting up dashboards and visualizing data and all those things. And the second one is conversion rate optimization, everything that happens after the click, which is always crucial and should be part of your skill set to a certain degree, but I think there's a lot of potential to just go that route. And the other one is the creative route, and really truly understanding videos, image ads, all those things. And most of the paths that you can sort of take involve a lot of creativity, and more so than before. So yeah.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens long term with Performance Max, and maybe we'll end by talking about Performance Max a little bit. I'd like to hear some of your thoughts, but I wonder if you always have this in an industry, specifically in our channel, Google Ads, right? You have kind of an early adopter phase of something, of a big change, where sometimes like it just works because when you're an early adopter, there's not as many people utilizing it, and Google's, especially with something like PMax, I think that happened. There was just a lot of all of a sudden this ad inventory and that wasn't really being used by a whole ton of people who are utilizing PMax as well. So I think people who use PMax, and a lot of them who use it in the beginning, especially doing it the right way, often saw like real good results. But then you have, kind of the phase we're in now, which is a lot of people are using it. A lot of people are experimenting. A lot of people are kind of doing the same thing at some level. Like we've all kind of figured out how to, we might have different ways that we're segmenting out asset groups and things like that, which is fair and different. They're kind of little fun things to kind of noodle on. But overall, it's kind of this base level of like, get your conversion tracking right, get your assets right, get your audiences right. And then you move more into the maturation, which I think is where you really get like people, as they understand it increasingly at a deep level, they really then start to experiment in different ways that like we aren't even thinking of right now, right? And I wouldn't be surprised maybe if we're on the cusp of that already. But one of the things that I'm increasingly wondering, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this as well as more PMax thoughts, but one of the things I'm increasingly wondering with PMax is whether it's going to be far more asset focused in the future rather than all about trying to hack apart the asset groups into all these various like products and this audience and that sort of thing. And it may be far more advantageous to get a base level of this is my audience I'm trying to target and do some segmentation perhaps as we have. So like a base level of that. And then maybe what the energy of the PPCer should be from then on is really working with a creative team to just be constantly trying to figure out assets in more of a social media style of a thing. Because you hear that all the time with Facebook ads and or Meta, where you can have ads that get outdated, things like that. And I'm kind of wondering if increasingly assets are going to be, that crucial part of PMax. That's, of course, leaving out the shopping feed, which is also crucial. So I don't know. General thought, I'd love for you to respond to that. And then also, if you wouldn't mind telling us, like, if there are just kind of any interesting things you're doing with PMax right now, just kind of, let us know.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know what the future brings because it's all changing so fast. Every month something new is launched or taken away. I have to say, it feels like Performance Max is much more where it was supposed to be. It's much more now where it was supposed to be when they launched it, because we're getting all those new insights, asset group reporting, search term data, which you can finally segment by date, range, and export, and all those things. Like, makes me wonder, why didn't we have them earlier? But probably the product just wasn't finished yet. But yeah, it makes total sense that we're going to a world where, and you were talking about that, like, basically how everybody was freaking out a couple of years ago. Like, what happens if everybody's has automated everything and everybody's using the same tech? How do you stand out? And we're kind of in that space right now. And you said PMax, there was maybe some first movers advantage, but then PMax, the way it was actually not that good either, because it was even more of a black box than it is now.
True.
But the adoption just came when they phased out smart shopping and they transitioned into PMax. So there was like a with the snap of a finger, we were all using Performance Max. But yeah, you see it not only in PMax, but in other campaign types as well. It's much more going towards that sort of baseline, like you said. You see it in YouTube ads as well, with optimized targeting that's getting bigger. Audiences are increasingly ignored or at least broadened up. Even match types are being broadened up. Exact match is not even as exact as it used to be. Not only through misspellings and close variants, but also similar words that is just sometimes not the exact same type of product or keyword, but it's similar. And I get why then you could get match on that, but it's everything is broadening up, and that's definitely in PMax where you don't have those base level of controls like keywords, etc. So yeah, it makes sense that we're going to a world where your creatives at some point might be one of the only things that you have control over, except for your campaign structure as well. I think that's a big one. And you mentioned like what are some cool things that you're doing in PMax now is one thing that is working really well in my accounts is the product hero campaign structure, which is basically we call it performance-based bucketing, where you create several campaigns with products that are being segmented based on how they've performed in the past. So in a tool like Product Hero, they have Product Hero Labelizer. You can also do it yourself with the script. The Flow Boost Labelizer is a free script, but basically what it does is it adds custom labels to your feed, to your products based on historical data, and then you set up some thresholds like your ROAS targets, conversion rates, etc. And then the products are labeled in their terminology as heroes, which is your best performing products that perform above target, sidekicks, which is showing potential, but it's not quite there yet. Then you have the villains, which are the products that are just underperforming, and the zombies, which you know as well, the zero impressions or low impression products. And then based on performance, the products are being shifted throughout the campaigns. Everything is based on the thresholds that you set: date range, conversion rates. Look back window, conversion rates, ROAS targets, etc. And then that way you can get a bit more control over how much you spend on the right products or not the right products. Because in my experience, still, if you leave it all to Google, the theory is that it will focus mostly on the products that perform best, but it's not always the case. And in a lot of cases, I see that 10% of products get like 80 or 90% of the total spent. So with this strategy, with this campaign structure, I'm actually getting back a lot of control, which works really well, especially with feed-only PMax campaigns. So yeah, that's something that I think a lot of. I don't know if whenever I audit, I still see accounts with only one PMax campaign with like almost no segmentation. So this then really works well. But it needs a decent amount of conversions to work well. Is that something that you use as well, or do you do that differently?
We do variations of that. I really like the idea of testing exactly those 4 buckets in an account. Like I don't think we have any. We might have some accounts that some of my account managers are running that I'm not aware of that are doing that. I don't know if we have any where we're running specifically exactly those 4 buckets. So that's really cool. Like I'd like to test them. One of the things I love about, but like I said, we run variations of that with like our top products and our zombies or ghost products or whatever, where they're not getting any action. And one of the things I really like about that sort of style, however someone's doing those buckets, is it's based on actual performance. And I'm a big fan of that. Of that, as opposed to sometimes people like to group things. I'm a big fan of grouping things by actual performance. Yeah. I'm a big fan of grouping things by product. Let's see, I want to say product type, but that can mean a very specific thing within Google Shopping. And I mean it more in the general, like I like grouping things according to here's what a target audience would be looking for, like these demographics of people that Google can like easily identify. This is the sort of person. These are the sort of products they're looking for. I like keeping those as much as possible together, because then we can have our assets be more tightly focused on them rather than just having, like you said, just kind of that overall general. Because then we get a little more control of our assets as well. But I tend to like those strategies and segmentation more than. Sometimes like I want to call them like assumptive based strategies. Like sometimes we'll see agencies who just kind of like, this is what we do. Well, what do you do? We add a new account, we totally blow it up, we change everything, we group things by profit margin in our products, we have our buckets for profits and things like that. And you're like, I think it's one of those strategies where it's like, because we've tested that and we've not always seen it actually change, like move the needle, right? And sometimes it seems one of those like it's segmenting out products based on an assumption of not utilizing historical data, just like taking all these products and saying they share this random similar thing, which is profit margin or something like that, and like grouping them together there. But then like your assets might need to be different for the products that are grouped within those buckets. You might have like, let's say you have a bucket that has a certain profit margin where there's 100 products in there. What if like 15 of those products are your top products, and then the rest of those products are villains? Yeah. Well, you've grouped them all into one campaign. You've given them the same targets, the same target ROAS, the same all that stuff, right? And so that tends to be where I think I would align more with what you're saying, especially on historical performance, rather than some other strategies I've seen out there. But
yeah, and like you said, like the fact that it's based on real data makes it trustworthy as well in my eyes. But I think with PMax, it really comes down to the fundamentals, because I'm not doing any nothing too crazy or out of the book. Whereas a couple years ago, like pre all the automation that we have right now, then you would quite frequently bump into someone that was doing like something wild, with having crazy success with campaign structures and search term based segmentation in shopping and using scripts and all those things. And now I just try to stick as much to the fundamentals as possible, which I think a lot of people overlook, but the fundamentals actually are so important now, and you need to have a really deep understanding of how the system works, because then you understand what is what am I actually trying to accomplish, what am I doing, what's the impact on the algorithm, on smart bidding. And for example, I try to focus a lot of my time and energy on ensuring we have the right data input. So the conversion tracking, first party data with our own customer lists, all those things. Assets, of course, but it kind of depends. I really like to use the script at Mike Rhodes to see what the actual spend is on those placements, like like video, YouTube. For anyone that's listening and is not aware of the script, check it out. It's called Mike Rhodes, also OG in the scene, and he created a script where you can see the spend allocation through the shopping network, search network, YouTube, and display, which is really handy. And that way, I was actually able to fix a broken, quote unquote, broken PMax campaign, because we could see that all of a sudden spend went up, ROAS went down, and we saw that video placements got a lot of spend out of nowhere. So then we reverted back to a feed-only PMax campaign structure, which ultimately led to going back to standard shopping. So those, you really need to do your best to extract as many insights as you can, even though it is such a black box by default. But it's Google Ads, especially with all the automation. I think it's become a game of who has the best fundamentals. Because ultimately, if the fundamentals aren't right, then what is the algorithm? What's smart bidding actually going to optimize towards? And so that's really crucial in my opinion.
I love that, and you've given us a good example of a fundamental. To me, like partially what I hear you saying at least is, like a fundamental to me of marketing or even just like business is, hey, these products are our hero products. These are our top products. These sell. These are 75% of our business revenue. Yeah. Therefore, to me, it's just kind of a base, like almost common sense fundamental, let's call it, of how can we set those apart to give them more, more budget, to give them more whatever that might be. How can we be more touchy about the assets we do for those? Like, how do we invest more time in optimizing that? You just can't do that if you haven't segmented those away into their own, asset group or campaign or that, right? Especially campaign for adjusting the target ROAS. So I think those are examples of someone can get really obsessed with some complex structure that doesn't actually like do one of the base levels of stuff that you should just be doing is like, hey, that product sells a lot. Let's go sell more of that product, right? Without getting all the others. I was looking at some figures just to see while you were talking, because I had this in one of my conference sessions. I like to use this example. This was this year we audited an account, and they had a Performance Max campaign. There were 347,000 SKUs in just this PMax campaign. Whoa. And of those 347,000 products, only 1,200 had even had one click on them. So we're not even talking like they had a lot of clicks. We're talking any. So 346,000 products didn't even have any clicks at all.
Yeah.
And only 50 of those 347,000 products, 50 of them had led to any sales at all.
Crazy.
I forget my time frame. I think I took at least a 90-day chunk at that time, during that time. And it was just a good example of, they have a limited budget. They have a TROAS they're setting, and the system is literally looking at 350,000 products, and like it cannot do anything with that. And that's a great example of, okay, so then what do we do about that? Do we need to actually stop sending all the products in the feed? Do we need to just, exactly like you said, like probably segment those out into unique campaigns at the very least as a start? But it's just a good example of how, to your point, like campaign structure is important as well in PMAX.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, and to add to that, and then it comes back to what I said about I think how important it is to understand how the system works. Because if you don't really understand how that works, this is a question that I got a lot from people where they want to do the segmentation, but then they say, yeah, why don't I just create a new asset group and then put those products in that asset group? But then you have no control over what happens in an asset group or between asset groups. Not yet, at least, until we have ROAS targets that you can change on asset groups. So for now, and especially with budgets are controlled on the campaign level. So if you want that control over specific products, then you need to create segmentation in different campaigns or a different campaign. And then, if you're just not aware of that, then it gets really hard. And I think this is probably the issue with automation right now, is that the barrier to entry is super low. And that's all. I think that's also why Google is doing it, because I don't blame them for that at all. I don't know. It's also not shady from their end. I totally get it. More advertisers can use their products now more easily themselves, and everybody can set up a PMAX campaign. It's really easy. You can do it in a few minutes. But then what happens afterwards, especially because it looks like it's so limited, that's when you need a true expert actually now these days, more than before, maybe even, because it's really easy for the algorithm the automation to go in a direction that you don't want it to go to. And that's why you need that deep understanding of the system.
We've seen that so much with conversions lately, just like conversions set up incorrectly or duplicate conversions, or I don't know. I'm actually curious. What do you have a few more minutes?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, cool. I'm actually a little curious to ask you about your thoughts on like micro conversions, like let's say tracking, like adding, value based into for add to cart and things like that. So I love the concept of it, and I have to be honest, like maybe I'm missing something, but a lot of times when we have tested it, we've seen the algorithms run after the micro conversions, and actually can lower actual sales over time. And my theory is that it's because what you're doing is you're providing some sort of value, right? Of like saying, hey, this many add to carts to get to this sale. And so you put some sort of value to help guide the system, right? And my thought is that the algorithm, for whatever reason, sees add to cart and basically, let's call it an add to cart audience, because now in the algorithm's mind, it's not thinking like that. It's not thinking like add to cart. It's thinking conversion. It's thinking this is the final goal that someone wants to do. And now it's thinking, wow, it's so much easier to get a lot of these people for $10 over here a revenue than it is for this like $200 revenue. But that's the actual sale for the client, right? And it seems like sometimes in some accounts with micro conversions, it like builds this audience persona that it just sprints after of let's say the add to cart persona that may actually not be the ideal actual sales persona. And sometimes we've just seen it go like great guns after that, and we'll actually see a kind of a high return reported in ads that is not correlated to actual sales from the client.
Yeah.
I don't know. So sometimes, like, I'm a little curious. Yeah, what have you seen something similar, or what do you think?
So right now I'm only working with bigger clients that have at least a couple hundred conversions per month. So in my portfolio right now, there's no need for those micro conversions. But I always say only do it if you really, if you're getting 1 or 2 conversions per month, then that's a lever that you can pull to try, at least try,
Agree.
But yeah, I totally agree that sometimes people just want to add micro conversions just for the sake of it, for more data. But if you have, let's say 30 to 50 conversions per month, then in a campaign, then it should already be fine enough, and you don't really need those micro conversions. But I haven't used micro conversions in that way recently because it's just of the portfolio that I have right now. But I think you're making a good point, and I would also stay away from using micro conversions if it's not needed. Like if it's needed to ramp it up and you're not getting those conversions, then by all means try with whatever you can to boost the system. But yeah, apart from that, I would only use it in that scenario. But no like real life experience here from recent days.
Yeah, we saw it one time. I think we were testing a few different things. Like I don't remember the exact client, so this is just going off memory, but it would be like add to cart and then like maybe like newsletter subscribe and just some different actions that someone would take, contact form, all that stuff, right? And specifically, I think it was like the newsletter subscribe, which again makes sense. That Google was just like, aha, here's how we can hit their ROAS goals, and like it just cruised after those, and we got lots of reported newsletter subscription, and like the report from it was everything was great, but then they were not leading to sales. So whoever the audience was that Google found wanted to subscribe to this particular client's newsletter, they were not actually, at least at that time. Maybe some of that could have been a window thing that they needed time eventually to convert. But it was also like, I think part of the problem is it was stealing a bunch of their budget over to that as well and going great guns at that. That's also maybe a final note just to be aware of, because from what I know of Miles, like I think we both care about just like high ethics and high honesty and good responsibility and keeping all of that in the PPC community. Like if you're listening, there are some ways that you just have to be a little careful with where agencies can over-report value within Google Ads that you actually don't see. And we have caught this in accounts where someone is running, I mean, it could be as simple as they are running duplicate conversions and just inflating. And if the client isn't actually monitoring other avenues as well, and they're just looking at Google, like we have had more than one, audit that we've run even recently. And I don't know if it is just a mistake on that agency's, time, which also would be bad if the agency doesn't see that they have duplicate conversions. That's actually pretty concerning too, if they didn't even catch it. But like, if they're like running at, oh, hey, we're hitting a 10 ROAS, and then we go in there, we're like, I hate to tell you this, but actually you have to cut everything in half here. It can be problematic to the algorithm when you make that switch. Like there are lots of issues, so just be aware of that. And that, to me, that's part of why hiring good, honest people is really important. So
yeah, man, and I see those stories as well on LinkedIn. Geert, international people will call him Gert. Gert Groot, Geert Groot. It's a Dutch name.
Yeah. That's funny. Now I'm tracking.
Shout out to Geert. Also, Amalia Fowler. I know that she's posting about these things as well. It's crazy, especially if an agency. I don't know how you guys operate in terms of contracts, but I hear stories about agencies locking people in 12-month contracts and then having these conversion setups yeah, it's just painful to see. I'm not necessarily against 12-month contracts if that is needed to showcase the value that you're delivering as an agency. Maybe it takes time, I don't know, whatever it is. But then that coupled with the things that you just described, yeah, there's a lot of shady things going on in our world, unfortunately, which in the end goes at the expense of the client. So yeah, I also hate that.
Yep. Well, cool. I won't keep you any longer. Thank you,
Cool.
Miles. It was truly a delight to catch up again. Yeah, we'll have to reconnect at some point in the future.
Yeah, man,
thanks for going,
absolutely. Thanks again, Kirk, and I look forward to the next one.
Yeah, and here's a good chance. Anything you want to shout out in terms of your community or whatever courses?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, you can follow me on LinkedIn, Miles McNair, and check us out at ppcmastery.com. Yeah, everything we have is there. Maybe you want to subscribe to our newsletter. We drop an advanced Google Ads tip every Monday. Yeah, so far my plug. That's it. Check out ppcmastery.com. Follow me on LinkedIn, and if you do connect with me, let me know you came through the PPC Ponderings podcast. That would be fun.
That'd be great. Thank you so much, Miles.
All right.
We hope you enjoyed today's conversation. Stay tuned for the next episode of the PPC Ponderings podcast to keep learning PPC. If you are a person with a brilliant PPC tactic that the world needs to know about, please apply to be a podcast guest online at zatomarketing.com/ponderings-guest. If you are enjoying these podcasts, please make sure to leave us a review on whatever your preferred podcast provider is. But in the meantime, may the auctions be ever in your favor.